Today, as I'm recording this video, which is the 15th of May, something huge is happening in the world. Two superpowers are meeting, the US and China. Trump is sitting across from Xi Jinping in Beijing, discussing things like trade, the Iran war, and perhaps Taiwan. I want to take a look at what's going on behind the feeling of this trade or this negotiation or meeting. What's the feeling here? Who has more to lose? Who is holding the upper hand, if any? I'm not here to throw shade on anyone. I'm here to dive in, to go beyond the veil, to see what I can see that is not being told to us. That's my intention here. I want to know what's being hidden here. How are they feeling? Who's holding the upper hand here? Does one country have more to lose than the other? This is so huge for our world right now. It affects every country. It affects the war. It affects trade. Very important. So let's see what the cards want to reveal about this meeting in Beijing between the US and China. I'm using the governance oracle, but there is a couple of the predictions cards in here by mistake, so they may come out as well today. Now, I can't help think that this whole thing that we've been through in the last couple of years all is leading up to these chessboard maneuvers. Now, I've been calling this a world chessboard for a while now. In some of my older readings, I kind of felt like the energy was moving world resources around a chessboard. And I've always felt that the players are the US and China. So it's really interesting and significant that they're now meeting head to head. So let's see where this strategic chessboard game will go next. So just seeing what the cards want to reveal first of all, before we look into who's holding all the cards here and who has the most to lose. But in this, I'm just letting the cards reveal what it is that they want to see, the secrets, what's not being shared with us, what's not being told. Now, I feel when this card of selling secrets came out, I felt like it's like a quiet negotiation of what is really up for offer here. What does each country have to sell secretly? Now, this could be trade, outright trade that we're all informed about. But I can't help but wonder if a country is going to be thrown onto the bus here. Traded out, negotiated as part of this selling or negotiating. Secretly, of course. There's something here that's going on around this negotiation that they're dodging. They don't want to deal with it yet. Now, whether that means that's Taiwan, not 100% sure there. There's something going on that they're not willing to put on the table yet. They're dodging that question. While they're seeing what is available, what is up for offer, what is up for grabs, what is negotiable, And I don't just think it's resources, I think it's country related as well. I'm not quite sure what I mean by that, but I feel like it's countries here as well, not just resources. Now, I know you can't sell a country. They can't offer each other different countries. It's not what I mean. There's something else. It's like, if you do this, then I won't do this about what goes on with this country. That's what I mean. It's not outright selling one country for another. That's what I felt like when I thought that maybe a country is going to be thrown under the bus here. Selling secrets. There's secrets here to sell. We've got money bags coming with money bags to the table. What have we got to negotiate with? What do we have to offer? Both countries. But something is not negotiable. Something is not up for offer. Something is not being brought to the table. Relentless determination from one or both countries or parties. Determined to get something across the line. Now, to me, I don't know chess moves, but I feel like this whole thing from the beginning has been a chessboard game between these two superpowers, these countries, and I've said it in other readings that I've done in the past. Okay, something's raising an eyebrow. I just have to bring that in. I'm getting it out of this card. Raising an eyebrow about something somebody says or does. It sparked the intrigue of the other country. Maybe because it's hurting or affecting their goals. What they're determined to achieve. Now, there could be a failed negotiation. I don't think it's with everything. I think it's with something. Whatever it is that they're dodging the question on. There's something they're dodging the question on, not willing to negotiate or trade that. At this stage, that is out of the question. Possibly Taiwan. No. It's something to do with trade. It's a trade thing. Something not being revealed about a trade. Dodging the question. I feel like something is not agreed to or negotiated. It's not even on the table. There's something that one person wants to put on the table, but the other person's unwilling to bring that into the talks, bring that into today's discussion. Not ready. Not ready to negotiate on one particular area. Now, I don't know if that's Taiwan or I don't know if it's trade, but there's one area. There are things up for grabs. There are things that they are willing to negotiate. They've got this big bag of money here ready to talk about certain things, but there's something that no matter how determined the other person is to have that on the table, there's something here that's not being negotiated. They're not ready to discuss that. Targeted attack. Are we talking here now about the Iran war? Oh. Dodging the question and withholding something, sitting on top of each other. Look, this is really random and I don't know where it's come from. And it's nothing I've ever heard. This to me looks like somebody that is bringing something to the table in a way that says, here, I said I would get this done for you. I wonder what that is. I wonder what that's got to do with the oil in Iran. I said I would get this done. Now, I can't tell if it's China doing it or if it's the US doing it, but they're being true to their word when it comes to Iran. And what I'm picking up is, I said I would get this done. Or I said I would do this, and being true to their word. But I can't tell which country it is, which is kind of making me feel like they've got some little background deal that no one else knows about that's being withheld. There's some little, and it may not even be presented in that meeting, it may not be talked about, but it's maybe was the stepping stone that got them to the meeting that they're in today. Someone did what said they were going to do, maybe to the benefit of the other country, which is very weird and random. It's not completely not what I thought, and I'm not sure why I'm picking that up. But it's withheld information. Someone stands to benefit something by what the other person has done, but no one else will ever know. See all these secrets? Look at all these secrets. Dodging the question, secrets, knowledge withheld. And then we've got the health regulation. Interesting that there's another virus around, and COVID hit China first. Just very interesting that this happens to be sitting on the table, really out of place. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, let's have a look at the energy of China. How are they feeling? What cards do they hold? Do they have more to lose? What's the energy around China? Okay, so I just took a bunch of cards out that just fell out in a clump, which I won't read, but I could let you know what they are. Shadow operation, disappointing results, borders, prosperity, seeds of prosperity, a beneficial impact, and corruption revealed. So I'm just going to sit those to the side just in case they happen to come into any part of this reading. Okay, we're talking about China's energy, and this card has come out. But there is a power shift connected to communism. Being controlled, controlling speech. When I first saw this card, when I saw power shift, communist country, global governance, first thing I thought of was one world order. And I don't care how conspiracy I sound when I say that. That's just happened to be the first thing I thought about when I saw those three cards together. If the end goal is one world government, then China, as a communist country, has to shift energy. Can't have this one world governance without China. But now let me get back into the reading. Let me feel the energy of China. Does China look like they have much to lose? China wants to be a big part of global governance. Communist, but not in a communist way. Not in a way that's represented communist energy, although it could be all about the control. Communist in the way that, and I'm talking to global governance, communist in a, not by title, but by control, the level of control, as the world impact of all countries, global impact, global governance is very much tied to China energy here. I'm reading China's energy. But there's a shift of power. They cannot play ball without China. But also China doesn't want to be left out of ruling elite, global governance. Doesn't want to be left outside of the circle. Has to be a united front. Has to be a united front. So I know the media over the years have always hyped China against the US, the West against the East. But there has to be a united front. Even if it's not that way in public perspective, in the background, there has to be power shift for the sake of global governance. Now, because I'm reading China energy, who wants to rule the world? And then I've got United Front, not wanting to be outside of the circle. So open to negotiations and working on a solution because of the volatility in China. Market volatility, some kind of volatility in China. Bound by who? Now this is the big giant chessboard. The card that I always talk about. The other card is the strategic chessboard, but this is a big giant chessboard. And who is aligned with who? Who are allies on this big giant chessboard? Okay, so why I'm seeing this giant chessboard, and from a perspective of the public, it's always been seen as East against the West. These cards are showing working on a solution, open negotiation, united front, a power shift for the sake of global governance or the effects on the globe, because that's what the war has been. Trade also. Trade and war has affected the globe. There has been volatility, according to these cards, there has been volatility in China. If I pull back from the energy here in this giant chessboard piece, it feels like China's open to negotiations and working on a solution. But really is all about, even though there's a power shift, there's still a need to be a leader in the world. Global leader, China energy. So from the China perspective, looks like there's been there's some volatility in China affected by what's been going on in the world, the impacts of the war and the trade situation, and willing to open negotiations to work on a situation. Pen to paper, so that's signing, also says trusted advisor. But what's on the table here is global governance, shifting power, and one country alone cannot play ball. Both countries are needed to play ball, US and China. This is really significant. I don't know if I can't tell if it's because there's a shift in the type of government of China, if that's where the shift is, or if the shift is global when it comes to the control that communists has on their country. Rulership, leadership. I keep hearing rulership, leadership. Global rulership. So moving forward, one cannot play ball without the other. There has to be a united front. Maybe China's a little worried about being left outside of the circle. Now this is in the background. This is nothing that we're going to be seeing face-to-face, face value perspective of the public. This is I've asked for what's underlying, the underlying feelings here. And it feels the significance of China and control or power along this line. And up here, but being very open to negotiating, working on a solution, because one cannot play ball without the other. Has to be a united front. Okay, let's take a look at the US energy. So in the first spread, some of these cards were in the first spread, which was the health card was in the health card. Interesting. We're talking about the US, or we're talking about Trump. Health. In the first spread, relentless determination and health. Now, I didn't pick it up as personal health. I picked it up as, it just made me think about the current pandemics. But are we talking about the health of Trump. Because now that I'm reading US energy, what's hidden, what's beneath the surface, not what's in the headlines, what is beneath the surface, I'm seeing the same two cards. So however they were in that first spread, the person that I was talking about with relentless determination, that's the US side. So let's get into the energy here. Okay, there's a falling from grace. We're talking about the US. This is the collective energy of the people when it comes to Trump. Maybe he's losing his base. I'm not sure. I don't follow Trump closely. But I do like to keep up with what's going on with the war, trade, because that affects us here. But this is very interesting. When we're talking US energy, or are we talking Trump energy? Because I'm wondering now about the health. I would say power of persuasion. I think he wrote a book, something about that. So I would say we're talking Trump energy right here. Misleading headlines, I have to say, sits under health. So discernment when it comes to headlines, especially when it's anything to do with health. But still the health card is on the table. Does that mean that there's health issues, but intentionally misleading the headlines to distract from that? Or does it mean that the headlines around his health are misleading? If there was no health issues, the health card wouldn't be on the table. Now, because of domestic priorities versus US involvement in global governance, this is where the collective energy is falling away because of, and I don't want to get into US politics, but by going by the card, what I'm after is the energy that the US is bringing to the table here. What do they have to lose? What do they have to offer? Where is the energy behind what they're bringing to the table? What's going on beyond the veil here? That's what I'm looking at. But coming in here, when we saw China's cards, we saw all this powerful energy down the bottom. Communism, we saw all about the global dominance, leadership, rulership, not wanting to be outside of that circle of global governance and having to therefore be a united front. That's what we saw with China's reading. With this reading, it's very different energy that's coming in here. I feel more personal issues into this reading energy here. But a peace treaty, a white flag, waving a white flag. Even though I see both here, now when I laid this card, there was a card sitting behind it and I didn't realize, and I pulled it out and I thought, oh, there's a shadow thing going on in the background here. I thought, I wonder if this card's going to be the shadow ruler card, but it wasn't. It was domestic priority, which falls in line to collective action because of the lack of domestic priorities here. What's happening in America domestically is putting the public, the collective, in an uproar, not happy. So therefore they're falling, leadership falling from grace because of the way things have been ruled. Like the world global governance has been more of a priority compared to domestic priority. But the shadow ruler did come out, even because I felt it there. I thought, oh, I wonder if there's a shadow ruler going on here. So who's ruling from the background? Does this come back to what I've just picked up on with domestic priorities? This is exactly what I'm picking up on right now. Domestic priorities should be the priority for US. But global, particularly the Middle East and the Iran, has been the forefront. And who is in the background? That would be Israel. That's Israel. Because of the focus being on global politics or global governance, global control, not domestic control. So I understand these ones here. There's an unresolvable differences going on here. A problem that cannot be resolved. So they have to wave the white flag. Could this be connected to Iran and Israel? Maybe it's getting out of the conflict. That's been the issue. Find it, what it quickly reminded me of was when Elon Musk and Trump teamed up together, and then they had the falling out, or however that ended, I'm not sure. And then we've got this partnership sitting next to the energy of this unresolvable, trying to resolve this energy, wanting to exit the war, the Middle East, having to wave a white flag, but stepping into the coming, okay, so as basic as I can make this, coming to the energy at the table at Beijing, hidden beneath the surface here from the US, is this stuff going on in the US, falling from grace, putting more priorities on the Middle East, the war in the Middle East, working with Bibi and Israel. But here there's this little partnership that looks like it's souring a little. So therefore coming to the table to China with this. I wonder if it's Israel that gets thrown under the bus for information to be classified. And a bit of a selfish agenda, coming to the table with a bit of a selfish agenda, wanting to liberate. Liberate from what? What does the US want to liberate from, I wonder? For information to be classified. And a bit of a selfish agenda, coming to the table with a bit of a selfish agenda, wanting to liberate. Liberate from what? What does the US want to liberate from, I wonder? Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching.